Warm greetings, Josi here. Welcome to ESP Playskool. And in this module, I wish to discuss something that comes up a lot with in my mentoring with people that have psychic skills and gifts is, of course, protection. And specifically for, we know that how to protect our body from physical attack, right? We learn ways of pacing, moving around our spaces and neighborhoods and all those things, right? To be aware of things. And then we think, okay, we've learned how to somewhat protect our heart, in some ways or shape or form, or we hope that we can, right? From further pains, but we discovered that there's ways for things, experiences, and connections to make their way in beyond the physical into those deep internal spaces, like the heart. Okay. And of course, then, must be aware, remember back to Playskool number 1, when we shared this visual, that there is almost like a center or heart as well within the mind. Hmm. And that in connection to our eyes, okay, that in connection to our eyes may bring up some ways for people to feel like people have stepped in to the most sacred and intimate space of your consciousness and mind. Mm. So I feel for you. I feel for you. And it's not that it hasn't happened to me either. Sometimes you may feel like things that almost step behind your eyes that make you wish to almost like rub it out. And so we'll go gentle today with sharing a little bit of an exploration on some of the symbolization that is shared within the mati, or this symbol, to shield from malintent. Malintent. And so we sometimes, and if you could easily just like draw on many papers round that type of symbol of like a darker spot in the middle, a ring around that, and then an outer ring too. And of course, we know that many of us may place these in our houses and our most intimate spaces, even above our doors, to support potentially those ways that we may feel at times that it's harder to cleanse, that it's harder to and more challenging to heal from those attacks of those intimate spaces that we carry in. We know our physical body, right, when it is harmed or attacked, that there is like a space and a process that allows it, right? We place a bandage, we place gauze, we place salves and nice herbs, and we rest and we allow things to heal, and we discover this magic of our physical form, right? And how that over time changes. Like I remember, even as I'm looking at my hand, like I'm like, oh, I remember there was a callus here that healed. I remember that there was like a bee sting over here that has, now I can't even see it. Mm. So aren't our bodies wondrous. Aren't our bodies wondrous? How they can heal over time and space. And so then, when we get wounded in, there is more difficulty to access and feel the wonder within, because it feels like they never leave our minds, right? So even if someone has harmed us over time, maybe by their words and their sounds and the noise that they share to us and to our ears, right? Maybe that some of their words have even carved themselves in and are repeated over time and kind of like come back again and again within your thinking and all the things that come up, all the words and sounds that come up in our head. So then what we try to do is we try to bloom and like really focus on that inner spot to allow that to kind of expand out and maybe take up more space, but then those things still step in. And so then we feel that, oh my goodness, it's a scary thing to have people take up space in our brains. And so then we must like, it almost feels even more fearful. We put like big names around it, like energy vampires and succubuses and all the that I can't even say here. So let's have some breaths with selenite after that. So this is a process to see that you can support healing those inner spaces. So breathe and be gentle with the paces of this process. Be gentle with those inner spots that we might be very protective over. Those inner spaces that almost, let's just take a moment and put that on a piece of paper. So you're welcome to start with that spot. And that spot you might feel is the wound or the way that they harmed. You know, like we think of that Shakespeare of like, out darn spot, wasn't it, with Lady Macbeth? That's just like it continues and it continues to affirm itself, and it just feels like this, then like this abyss, right? It sometimes even grows in size because we know that harm is there. We know. And so we try to obliterate it, right? We try to deflect it by just like pretending it doesn't exist. This is why I'm so like always saying it's not just about mindset, because it's like, you know, we can't just like try to lobotomize those things out of our heads. Duh. Like people tried that in history and over time, and that really isn't kind, is it? It's really not kind to us. So it's not about just pretending it's not there, because that is not so healthy for our minds. So let's take a moment to acknowledge that our mind is a space that is very sacred. Space is sacred. Space is special. And so when we acknowledge that, even though there's something in there, be it that that spot in center is something most sacred and special and holy and all of those words, right? That you wish to like protect and care for and not allow people into your innermost sanctum, sanctuary. Or you could think of that as like Do you see now how silly it is to be like, oh, that spot is my that wound that I need to eradicate? That spot is a really beautiful space. That spot is our almost like natural black hole of like supporting like a sinkhole effect of like yum 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 munching on all maybe the debris from other experiences and people and conversations, right? It's like almost like think of it like a little vacuum, yum, 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 that like slowly over time. Oh yeah, just like how our remember like how the hand heals, how the body heals slowly over time. Things do kind of get like vacuumed or sucked in if we allow it to step into that spot. If we allow it to move, but sometimes we get so caught on that spot. It's almost like we tattoo it in. We tattoo that spot in of like, oh, that was where that person harmed me. And I'm repeating that thing and I'm now believing it. I'm now believing it. And I've now like seen some truth in that. And so now that is like more emphatic and harder. Do you see? Like, just like it's harder to actually just move, like how like the dust on the floor moves with the breath. It might need something to support it. It might need something to support it, kind of like coaxing it to soften, to disperse, kind of like to break up its stronger form within our heads, and to potentially then slowly over time make its way to that space. Mm. Ooh, this isn't a pretty as pretty a picture, is it? Than the things that I drew here. Let's go back to this one. You know, sometimes when we're like, oh, like that, like, yeah, it brings up all the things to the all the things. It brings up all the things. So then we see this, and we're like, oh, right, there's like a spiral energy. We know that like when we see water or even a tornado, right? In air, a spiral in air, a spiral in water. Ooh, right? A spiral, as we said, in a sinkhole, like even in the earth. A spiral in fire, right? All these different elements, when they work with that kind of spiral movement, okay, there's like a natural, then almost like convincing for the things. I'm almost getting, you know, like we all have that visual maybe of like Wizard of Oz and like Toto and like the, you know, Dorothy, and how they like that whole tornado just kind of picked up all the things that were in that space, picked up all the things, the trees, the house, the dog, the little dog too, and, you know, spiraled it all around. But it's kind of neat because in those like scary things that we see of like tornadoes, things, we don't know where it goes. And then sometimes it just kind of like the spiral is done and it just kind of falls all over the place again. And then you have to like put things back together again. Are you kind of getting where I'm going with this? So there's an importance of then, like allowing that spiral to be a functioning movement of our mind, allowing that spiral to be a gentler process than a tornado or like a current of a Bermuda Triangle, right? Like there it needs to be a gentler movement so that it doesn't just like flurry and bring all the things that are in there, you know, all up and around and and then just to fall back into different spaces or spots, right? So like this kind of stop start doesn't really support a gentler movement that will slowly over time, like think of like the beauty of how rivers are formed, or the beauty of how like rivers slowly over time like carve rocks and change shapes. Ooh, of how like, oh, here's a spot in this painting, of how over time, right, the movements of like all of those elements combined just gently start to disperse, shift, move things. And it does require a diligence at times, because then, you know, we think of it like, we like it when we think of somebody in our head and then they call us because we like them, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, I thought of you. I thought of you. And now you called. Yay, I like my psychic gifts. I love my connection to the people that I love and adore and that support me in being well. Mm. But I almost want to cough it out because we know where this is going. But like, what if then that another one gets into your head, and they're in your head and they're saying hello before they even call? They don't call you because you actually shared in real time, right? On these planes, I don't want to talk to you no more. You gave them a boundary. You said, leave me alone. And then they step back into your mind. And you're like, but I said, leave me alone. Go home. So then we feel that this keeps us up at night. These like ghosts of people past just kind of feel like they're floating around that space. Ah, and that then we must do some weird kind of like dark, scary magic in order to eradicate them completely from that space. But then we remember some fun with symbols. We remember that on top of that inner sanctum, that center of whatever space we are speaking of, right now it just happens to be this gorgeous space here in our head. Yeah, okay. So outer circle shares the space we are talking about. Smallest circle speaks of like that inner sanctum, our sanctuary, our sacred spot. That's for us and us alone. So that we can, well, what's the nice thing about having a spot that is for us and us alone with all the other things swimming through and moving through, is that that allows us to feel focus, uh, clarity, all those beautiful words that allow us to feel centered. Sometimes people have shared that as aligned, right? That there is then kind of this central channel, because of course we know a spot like in a different plane, right? Like has an energy that would go, do you see like wherever that plane is, kind of like this like channel, this conduit, this like tube. I'm almost feeling it like a black licorice. Yum, yum. So that's a really special space to care for, to care for. Mm. And so you see then there's some additional rings. And even they have been shared in different, like different color blue, different tone of blue. And one's like, and then there's black and then there's white, right? Different tones and colors. So that then, instead of feeling like we have to then try to just like move all of these things all the time to convince them and coax them to come into our innermost sanctum, what? We can then just share something. We can just practice actually accessing that inner sanctum. Just take a moment. Where is that spot? And when you access that spot, just getting like, like almost like that childlike thing of like ring around the rosy. So you found your beautiful rose, you found that beautiful sanctum. And then let's see, we need a different tone, right? I just shared that. I need a different tone. Can we see this one on screen? Yeah, okay. So we go, inner sanctum is protected. May anything that is not respected or not respecting my well-being, because that inner sanctum allows me to be well, may that move beyond a new line I draw. A new line I draw in there. Ooh. Hmm. This is like boundaries in deeper spaces. How are you doing? Let's take some water. Honor if some tears may arise too. If you need even like a warm cloth to wash your face, feels really good and supportive for this work, because though it seems like we're just playing, as you know, as you know, this is about like our inner eyes, our psychic eyes. Mm. Our mind, our mind is such a, you know, our brain is such a gentle and like, even think of this, like neuroscientists like still to this day like still are mapping the mind. They're still discovering more things. They're still navigating and uncovering and exploring new things. And then there's all these processes and practices all across the board, from meditations to journeying, to different energetic and consciousness practices that have been, woven through the many cultures and traditions of those in connection, um, right? For like millennia, so long, so long. So, and so we know that we affirm, like, right, when we affirm something in meditation, it gets a stronger groove. I'm going to even show you, like, right, it gets a stronger groove. So, like, if water was dripped into this rock over time in the same way, right? I think this, I think this, I think this, right? It gets a stronger groove. And then as you see, it's almost like creates a bit of a trench, right? Like a that. So if somebody was like boop, 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 they wouldn't be able, like they might fall right into the trench and then not be able to like, continue to trespass. So knowing ooh, some of these grooves, like that initial groove that this is my space, my inner space, right? Like when guides and guardians share, take back your space. It's like about allowing that groove to be affirmed, right? We have so many other grooves, and right, like just think of all the meditation teachers of sharing like different practices of how like to soften those grooves of things that we don't necessarily want to be grooved and carved into us, um, to shift and change over time. Because they're gentle processes, because we know these grooves are within our mind, and as we said, our mind is our, in the physical form, our brain, and our brain is a pretty delicate, beautiful flower, isn't it? A delicate, beautiful, kind of somewhat pink flower, our brain. We gotta treat it gently and sweetly. Yeah. Okay, so how are you doing? How are you doing? Hmm. So these things that are grooved in support what people may then share as protection. Hmm. But when we create new lines, new lassos, new ropes, new boundaries for our innermost sanctums, are you seeing something here? That then needs to be affirmed and grooved in over time. So some people then, you do all these things like clearing the mind, cleansing of this, like all these energetic cleansing practices in the most subtle realms. Are you getting me? And then you're like, I'm cleaned. My chakras are clean. And then the next, like 2, 3 days later, after like the high comes down from the subtle, subtle practices that you have done, I'm sharing this with love. No judgments here. Subtle practices over time do affirm things in the physical. But so do you see, do over time? So in the time after those subtle practices, there needs to be some affirmative processes to support its movement into the most physical, grounded, and real. And so when then those come back into the mind, maybe after 3, 4 days or more, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm being haunted. There is, but what am I going to do? I need more cleansing. I need some major journeying. I need some intense lobotomifications to access, to get them out, to clean out. Or you could just go, oh, hey, guess what? Where's my spot? Where's my sanctum? Getting close. Where's my band? Even if it feels like a rubber band to begin with, right? Even if that feels like it has a little bit of movement and it's malleable to begin with, you're like, okay. Even if there's going to be some like, right? Like it's hard to see the shapes at the beginning of this process. Big breaths. Find that spot. Let that spot find that inner line you have drawn, even as malleable and soft it may feel. And then just hold it dear. I hold the line I have drawn. Not allowed in here with love. For love is greater and stronger than fear. To do this work with the mind, with love. So we see this and we see that it's actually almost might feel like this, right? That circle, that inner or outer, sorry, the outermost circle runs around our head, beyond our forehead, beyond our left, right ears, beyond the back. It's larger than that space. Woohoo! And then, so we're like, right, so there's space to play. As that affirms itself over time, I affirm, I affirm, I affirm, right? That's a bit of work. That's kind of like the diligent, gentle, loving work. I affirm that line that I have drawn. The space within is my inner sanctum. May you be held dear beyond my lines. May you be held dear even beyond this one. And then over time, maybe you can share once that gets firmer in. Can you see this color? That you're like, even then, the space around that line. Because we know there's lots of fluid held in. We know there's lots of fluid. Our, science taught, right? You can Google it up. What is the percentage of water in our brains? What is the percentage of water in our hearts? So you see, right? I shared even in this first drawing of the lines, the rings, yes, ring, 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 the ripples that can extend and expand out from that space. And we are just sharing it in more detail for the center and the ripples in this space. So we see we have we have more than one special spot in us. And then we're like, oh my goodness, I have to protect all of them. But then, of course, we remember within our body this incredible physical form, right? In like the blood and the bones and all the things. There's this fun thing that we know carries like the codes and the data of like our ancestors most beloved and of our people, of our families, right, of our family lines. And then we were like, right, like, oh yes, like do you see, like we can then like go like, hey, I'm working a little bit up here, right, to support some things to move slowly and gently with love beyond my borders here. Whoop. So maybe you can support me in this space as I focus up here. Or maybe, we might have a belly space too. But let's start with one space at a time and then trust that we can ask for assistance, as we learn how to move, right? To move our awareness and our focus to maybe one point or more. But back to, we remembered that to get focus, we need to maybe first start up here. Any questions? You're welcome to share. These sessions, these modules of connection are done, as you see, to pace. This is like subtle work, feels sometimes like child's play, but as we now are realizing, this subtle processes are very impactful over time, right? Very impactful over time. They can carve into very kind of strong, solid things. So may you enjoy some of these prompts to start to almost like draw some circles. And we can think of it even instead of like a line in the sand, that it's actually that you are able to start that, back to that movement, right? Back to that movement. The movement of that gentle, you're like, wait a second, Josi spoke of this gentle movement. How do we allow that to be gentle and not like a tornado? We kind of forget about it, don't we? Because then we work on some drawing some circles round our innermost sanctums in our inner spaces. And then as those circles affirm and strengthen over time, let's see if I can make this like this extra space, and that's a as it affirms and strengthens over time. As you see, there's then kind of like an energy. There's an energy that is then comes always between things. Right, because on top of 4 elements, we got one little special one. We got one special one that is hard to comprehend, right? Of ether that shares naturally in the spaces between things, some movement, some energy that is gentler in its movement than our controlled, forceful movement, right? That it actually is a gentler, slower, fluid energy ether, even slower than water. Gentler than air. Like, can we start to even comprehend that? Wow. And so then we just need to focus on, right? Drawing those circles round those new boundaries in our inner spaces and say, please move beyond that. You're not welcome here. And sometimes it might feel that you have to be a bit firmer in that. And sometimes, yes, we might get strong and affirmative and with our words to begin with, because we are also needing to be strong in our tone and sound, because guess what? Our sound carries then from the most physical to the most subtle. It will reverberate through. So we might kind of first whisper in, being like, please don't come here anymore. You're not welcome. And that's a good thing too. Little whispers in. And then that, like it, something really comes knocking. No. And then you have to visualize even that circle that you're grooving in over time. I'm affirming no, not allowed past this line. Nope, nope, nope. Start to feel a little bit more of that sanctuary again. But there's like a little itchy up here. Please move past that. Okay, so that's when we do you see an extra? It's like kind of going like this might be a room, this might be a home, this might be a garden or a moat, this might be like the outermost property line, right? That we kind of think of when we think of homes, sanctuaries, places that we feel safer, spaces that can then become safer over time. So the fun thing in these processes is you get to play with them in the innermost micro spaces to the most macro. Have fun in discovering how to move and gently work in affirming your sound, your nose, your rings, your boundaries, and then trusting that there is a subtle, 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 beautiful, beautiful element called ether that moves into any space, that fills any space, every space between things that we can create. And then that energy is a gentler, subtler movement than any movement of that we could do on our own. And that will support over time some really, really special things. Woo! Some really, really special things like that natural cleansing process of gentle softening, dispersion, dispelling, and cleaning of the mind. Okay. Ooh, we went on a journey today. I hope you drink lots of water. You're welcome to replay these videos. You'll see that sometimes with this work, you kind of step away, right? You might have one toe in one time. It's like a bath, right? Like one toe in to the water, and you're like, oh, that was a little hot. I'm going to take as much as I can from that container waste, like, that module. And then I'm going to step away and I'm going to move around and do my things. And then I might get a little like boop, boop in the mind of going, ESP Playskool, I think it's time to, come back again. And so I always welcome you back for replays, reviews, revisits, because as we know, it takes time to bring and move new grooves into our innermost spaces. And in our gentle paces, we can then further and further and further affirm our capacity we carry to navigate most responsibly all of the sort of like honoring that each and every one of us carries so many innermost spaces too, as well as like this outermost space that we call, yeah, you, like us. And maybe we can then navigate how we communicate and share our yeses as well as our nos with grace, with love, to affirm our well-being, our well-being beyond just us. I don't know how else to share that. Do you get that? Or is that too much for today? If it is, just stuff it somewhere. Take what you may. And if you wish to come back again sometime soon, I welcome you. I welcome you. Josi out. You're welcome to like, subscribe, share. Please share these videos if you feel anyone else moves through trying to comprehend their psychic gifts. I don't want to leave you today. I'm just like, hi. So, yes, you can also comment and share some things between videos, and I will do my best to respond to all of them that I can, if I may. And until then, enjoy being or trusting over time, like strengthening and grooving in that trust that you can support and protect your own spaces that you carry within your body with more grace. Much love. Take care. And stop recording.